All right, so today we're taking a deep dive into something most people probably don't think about too much, but it's seriously important.
Oh, sounds intense.
It is, in a way. We're talking about Amazon Route 53, that service from Amazon Web Services.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of it. But to be honest, I don't really know what it does.
We'll get ready to have your mind blown because it's like the unsung hero of the internet. It's basically like a massive directory that helps connect users to all the websites and applications out there.
So it's like a GPS for the internet.
Exactly. That's a perfect way to put it. But instead of streets and highways, we're talking about web addresses and servers.
Okay, that makes sense. But I still feel like I'm missing some pieces of the puzzle. Like, how does it actually work?
Well, that's what we're here to uncover. Route 53 does a bunch of cool stuff, but it boils down to three main functions. First up, domain registration. Like getting your website thatfancy.com or .org address so people can actually find you online.
Oh, right, like claiming your little piece of internet real estate.
Exactly. And Route 53 can handle that whole process, making it super easy, especially if you're already using other Amazon Web Services.
So it's like a one-stop shop for getting your website up and running?
Pretty much. They even have a getting started guide that's surprisingly straightforward, even for beginners.
That's good to know. Okay, so domain registration, check. What's next?
Next up, we've got DNS routing. Now, this is where things get a little more technical.
Uh-oh, here comes the brain-bending stuff.
Don't worry, I'll try to keep it simple. Basically, DNS routing is all about directing internet traffic, making sure it flows smoothly and gets to the right place.
So it's like the internet's traffic cop.
Exactly. Picture a busy intersection during rush hour. You need a traffic cop to keep things from descending into chaos, right? That's what Route 53 does for all the data zipping around the internet.
Okay, I can see the analogy, but
Mhm.
how does it actually make sure everything goes to the right place? I mean, it's not like there's a tiny person in there directing all the data packets, right?
You're right, it's not magic. It uses something called DNS records, which are basically like instructions that tell computers where to find specific websites. It's a bit like an address book, but for the internet.
Okay. So when I type in a website name, Route 53 looks it up in its giant address book and directs me to the right server.
Pretty much. And those DNS records can do all sorts of cool things, like create aliases for your domain or even route your company's email through a service like Amazon Workmail.
So it's like a multitasking internet traffic controller.
Exactly. Okay, two down, one to go. The third big thing Route 53 does is health checks. Think of it like a doctor for your website, constantly monitoring its vital signs.
Wait, so it's not just about connecting people, it's also making sure those connections are actually working.
You got it. Route 53 sends out little signals to your web servers all the time, making sure everything is up and running smoothly.
What happens if something goes wrong? Like if a server crashes or a website goes down?
That's where things get really clever. Route 53 can automatically reroute traffic to a healthy server, preventing those annoying error messages and making sure users have a seamless experience.
So it's like having a backup generator for your website. Even if one part fails, the lights stay on somewhere else.
Exactly. And for businesses, that can be a lifesaver. Imagine you're running an online store and your website goes down right before a big sale. Route 53's health checks could have detected the problem early and rerouted traffic, saving you a ton of lost revenue.
Wow, I'm starting to see why this is such a big deal. But you mentioned something about additional features earlier. Don't tell me we've only just scratched the surface of what Route 53 can do.
Oh, you have no idea. We've covered the big three, but trust me, there's a whole lot more to explore.
Okay, now you've really got me intrigued.
Well, we're just getting started. Stay tuned, and we'll dive into all those amazing features in part two. All right, so last time, we left off with a bit of a cliffhanger. We talked about the big three functions of Route 53 domain registration, DNS routing, and health checks.
hmm
But you hinted that there's even more to this thing.
Oh, yeah. There's a whole bunch of cool stuff we haven't even touched on yet, like Route 53 Resolver. Have you ever heard of that?
Resolver? I don't think so. What's that all about?
So imagine your company has a ton of different systems, servers, applications, databases, all spread out across different locations or maybe even different cloud environments.
Yeah, that sounds pretty complicated.
Well, it is. And all those systems need to be able to talk to each other, right? To share information, to coordinate tasks, all that good stuff.
Makes sense. So where does Route 53 Resolver fit into all of this?
Basically, it acts like a super efficient directory assistance for all those internal networks, helping them communicate with each other smoothly and securely.
So it's like having a traffic cop inside your company's network, making sure all the data gets where it needs to go.
Exactly. And it can even help protect your sensitive data by keeping it away from the public internet. Like, it creates a secure tunnel for your information to travel through.
Oh, that's smart. Speaking of security, you know what's been on my mind lately? All these cyber attacks you hear about all the time. Does Route 53 do anything to protect against that kind of stuff?
You bet it does. That's where DNS Firewall comes in. You know how sometimes you click on a link and it tries to take you to some shady website that wants to download malware onto your computer?
Ugh, yeah, those are the worst.
Well, DNS Firewall is like having a bouncer at the door blocking those malicious requests before they can even reach you. It checks the reputation of the websites you're trying to visit and only lets the good guys through.
So it's like an extra layer of protection on top of my antivirus software.
Exactly. It's super important tool, especially for businesses that need to protect their data and their reputation.
Okay, so we've got internal network management and security covered. But you know what else I always worry about? Website speed. I'm one of those people who gets super impatient if a page takes too long to load.
Oh, tell me about it. I think everyone's got a little bit of that in them these days.
Right. So does Route 53 do anything to address that? Like, can it make websites load faster?
Absolutely.
Mm.
Remember how we talked about DNS routing? Well, there's this really cool feature called traffic flow, and it basically takes routing to the next level. It's like having a smart traffic system that constantly analyzes road conditions and reroutes cars to avoid congestion.
Okay, so instead of just sending everyone to the same server,
Yeah.
it figures out which one is the fastest and most efficient based on things like location, traffic, server health, all of that.
Exactly. It's like having a personal traffic guide for your website, making sure users have the smoothest and fastest experience possible.
That's awesome. I'm starting to think Route 53 is like the ultimate toolbox for anyone who wants to build a killer online presence. But with all these different features and settings, it kind of seems like it could get overwhelming, especially if you're not a tech expert.
Oh yeah, I can see how it could be a bit intimidating. That's why Route 53 offers this awesome feature called Route 53 Profiles.
Profiles. What are those?
Think of it like templates for your DNS settings. Let's say you're working on multiple projects, each with its own unique configuration.
That sounds like a recipe for disaster. How do you keep track of everything?
Well, that's where Route 53 Profiles comes in. You can create these pre-configured profiles that you can easily apply to different projects, making it super easy to manage even the most complex setups.
So it's like having a cheat sheet for all your DNS configuration.
Exactly. You don't have to start from scratch every time, which saves you tons of time and reduces the risk of errors. It's a real game changer for organizations with lots of moving parts.
You know, it's amazing to think about all the things that go on behind the scenes when we're browsing the web. Most of us just type in a website and expect it to work. We don't even realize all the complex systems and processes that make it happen.
It's true, we kind of take it for granted, but I think it's fascinating to learn about how it all works. It makes you appreciate the incredible ingenuity and collaboration that goes into building something as complex and as essential as the internet.
Absolutely. So what would you say is the key takeaway from all this? What should our listeners be thinking about after this deep dive?
Well, I think there are a few important things to remember. Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that Route 53 is a pretty powerful tool. It's not just for tech experts. If you're building or managing anything online, whether it's a website, an app, or even just your company's email, understanding Route 53 can give you a real edge.
I agree. And even if you're not a techie, I think it's fascinating to learn about the hidden world behind the scenes of the internet. It makes you a more informed user.
Yeah, totally. It's kind of like knowing how a car engine works. You don't have to be a mechanic to drive a car, but understanding the basics can make you a more confident and savvy driver.
Exactly. And it's not just about the technology itself. It's also about appreciating the people who build and maintain these systems. There are countless engineers and developers working tirelessly to make sure everything runs smoothly.
Absolutely. It really highlights the collaborative nature of the internet. It's not just one company or one person. It's a global network of people working together. And Route 53 is a perfect example of that.
So for our listeners who are feeling inspired to learn more, where should they go from here?
Well, we've included links to some great resources in the show notes, including Amazon's official documentation. They have tons of tutorials, guides, and videos that explain everything in detail.
And don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. You can set up a free AWS account and start experimenting with Route 53 yourself. There's no better way to learn than by doing.
Oh, for sure. And there are tons of online communities and forums where you can connect with other folks who are learning about AWS. It's a great way to get advice, share tips, and troubleshoot any problems you might run into.
Awesome. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Amazon Route 53, what's the one big takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with?
Well, I'd say it's this. The internet might seem like magic, but it's not. There's a ton of complex technology working behind the scenes to make it all happen. And services like Route 53 play a crucial role in keeping everything running smoothly, securely, and efficiently.
Beautifully said. It's been a fascinating journey exploring the world of Route 53. We've gone from thinking of it as just a simple directory to understanding its role in everything from domain registration to website performance to cybersecurity. And I have to say, I'm pretty impressed with what this service can do.
Me too. It's a real testament to the power of human ingenuity and the collaborative spirit of the internet.
Absolutely. Well, folks, that's a wrap for today's deep dive. As always, keep those brains buzzing, keep exploring, and join us next time for another venture into the world of tech. Until then, happy learning.